Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation on the importance of nutrition. So this is just going to be like a relaxed talk. I'm just going to talk through my slides, nothing too formal. So what are the benefits of a healthy diet? There are so many. I've been listed here. So number one, I want to start off with healthy diets help us to have a healthy body weight, specifically BMI. So we know that the higher your BMI is, the higher your chances are of having comorbidities such as CVD, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. So a healthy diet helps us to improve our self-image, our well-being. It's good for our mood, specifically vitamin D and vitamin B6 and B12. These are actually linked to anxiety and depression in older adults. We know that serotonin is produced in our gut, so gut health also comes into play here. So a healthy diet helps to reduce the risk and incidence of developing diseases such as CVD, type 2 diabetes, and cancers. A healthy diet helps us to fight infection and keeps our immune system strong. We know that anybody who has diseases of the lungs like cystic fibrosis or any other kind of inflammatory diseases that cause infection, your rates of recovery are just much lower when you're not eating right, when you're not eating enough, or when your nutrition just isn't adequate to meet your nutritional requirements. Energy. You can't do anything without your energy levels. I know for me personally, there's nothing worse than when your energy levels are just in the gutter. You're just a mess. You can't function. I know you can't function properly when you're not eating right. You just know you're not in your best. You're not your best self when you're not eating right. Energy levels are so important to me. So food actually has a huge impact on your sleep. We know that caffeine keeps us awake. It overstimulates us. It keeps us aware and awake, which is good in the morning when you wake up and you want those properties. But then on the other hand, there's so many things which I'm currently still researching that are beneficial and helpful for sleep. So we have things like in the sleep teas, we have fennel, lavender, valerian roots, chamomile tea, which is a big one. These not only help you sleep, they relax you, they promote relaxation, but they also are good for anxiety. So anxiety, I'd say, and sleep disorders go hand in hand. Usually when you're not sleeping, there's some sort of anxiety there, not all the time, but sometimes. So I put pregnancy and fertility here along with growth and development. So we know that when a woman is pregnant, it's really important that nutrition intake is optimal and adequate to give your child the best possible start in life as possible. If a pregnant woman is, looking after herself, reducing stress levels, keeping herself healthy and happy during pregnancy, your child just has a better chance of survival and just less chances of developing diseases. So here are some very interesting Irish statistics. Two of the main causes of death in Ireland are circulatory disease and cancer. So it suffices to say that these two diseases can come back to diet, usually come back to diet, not in all cases, because a lot of chronic diseases are actually hereditary, but diet does impact in a positive and a negative way. So we know that if someone's born with an inherited condition, we do know that lifestyle choices can can bring forth the inherited gene that may be like laying dormant and just like bring it out of the woodworks, and it can just start like activate the problem. So other things, Alzheimer's, because the population is living longer, more people are developing Alzheimer's because there's better education, better medication, education, did I say that? And technology. People are just living longer because of the better services and resources that are available. 50% of older Irish adults report having one or more chronic diseases. That's a lot. That's 1 in every 2 persons you know over the age of 65 have one or more chronic diseases. And 10 to 14% of older Irish adults are depressed. So like I said earlier, there are nutrients that are linked to anxiety and depression, vitamin B6 and B12. There's a massive Irish study, the TUDA study, that actually investigated in around 5,000 Irish people their vitamin B6 and B12 status, and they actually found that deficiency in those 2 nutrients were linked to higher incidences of anxiety and depression, which is really interesting because B vitamins are in everything. They're in milk, meat, they're in all the basic foods that we tend to eat regularly on a regular basis. So, but there are some causes of deficiency that are out of like your control. So cardiovascular disease. So CVD, this includes coronary heart disease, stroke and heart failure. It accounts for 1/3 of all Irish deaths, which is the equivalent of 10,000 deaths per year. And it also increases your risk of developing diabetes. What are some risk factors for CVD? So there's certain lifestyle choices you make that may increase the onset of CVD, and this includes things like smoking, high cholesterol levels from a high saturated fat diet, a high intake of trans fatty acids. Also, you have your physical inactivity, obesity, and diabetes. Number 2, cancer. Risk factors is smoking, infections, and alcohol. Other factors that may increase the rates of cancer include physical inactivity, diet, and being overweight or obese. So we know that diet, tobacco use, intake of alcohol, and a lack of exercise can really bring about the consequences, not consequences, but it can be a major risk factor for developing cancer. We know that a diet low in antioxidants increases your risk of developing cancers, because antioxidants play such a vital role in the body in scavenging free radicals. Okay, so these are some obesity predictions from the World Health Organization, the WHO. And they actually predict that in Ireland in 2030, which is set to be the most overweight population in Europe, by the way, 89% of men are said to be overweight. That's crazy. 89% of men, so basically 90% of men are expected to be overweight in 9 years' time. That's crazy. Like if we sat down and think about this, why is this? Well, at the minute this is relevant because we have the coronavirus. So a lot of people are sitting at home, lost their jobs, maybe there's been a shift in mental health. Depression rates have likely increased. And we know that just activity levels, per diet choices, that all impacts your weight. And by the way, along with this sharp rise in overweightness in men, there's going to be a lot of diseases that come along with being overweight, as I previously mentioned. That includes CVD, and it also includes type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. What else? yeah, being overweight comes with consequences. So for women, so obesity is actually a bigger problem in women compared to men. And I think this is because women have lower physical activity levels, which is very interesting. So it's actually set to increase for women from 23% to 67. So that means 67% of women in the island of Ireland are set to be obese by 2030, in 9 years' time. I do not hope to be within that 67%. I don't think I will be. Some other major risk factors that are associated with developing obesity are education level and what socioeconomic group you're in. So we know that people from deprived areas or from low socioeconomic status, they have less availability to food. They make poor food choices, and sometimes it's not even always their choice. Like fast food is more readily available, it's cheaper, it's cost effective, it's low effort as well. You don't have to prepare it, you don't have to have, kitchen utensils, your oven, your microwave, your everything you need to prepare a meal. We know that education level, people who are educated or educated on their food tend to make better food choices. So that definitely impacts on the obesity rates that are set to come into play within the next 9 years. Okay, so the interesting part, what constitutes a healthy diet? My favorite, fruit and veg. So fruit and veg, they're abundant in vitamins, minerals, fiber, and antioxidants. We need everything that's in fruit and vegetables to survive. We need them to, especially to ward off diseases. Like fruit and vegetables are filled with like your vitamins and your vitamins and your minerals, which you need to fight disease, but not only fight disease, but to prevent disease in the first place. For instance, if you're not eating enough vitamin C, you're going to maybe develop gum problems, not scurvy, because that's not really relevant in these times. But if you're going back to the B vitamins, if your B vitamin intake is low, you might be at increased risk of things like vitamin B12 associated anemia. You might be at increased risk of anxiety and depression because you're not getting the nutrients you need. So if you're eating healthy, you're not going to, in most cases, you're not going to bring about a disease because your body's in its optimal nutritional state. Next, we have whole grain foods. So fiber is so important for a healthy digestive system. It also regulates your appetite. So if your diet is higher in fiber, you're going to be easier satiated and you're just going to be feeling fuller for longer. So it's really just going to stop you from eating necessarily, stop you from being hungry. Like there's nothing worse when you eat a meal and you're hungry like an hour after. You're just not eating enough fiber, protein as well. So speaking of protein, you have your lean meats, your protein sources of food. Protein from like meat and your plant sources is a very good source of minerals and your B vitamins. Vitamins. That's why I said earlier that it's so strange to be deficient in B vitamins because they're available in like staple foods like milk, meat, cheese, grains, meat, as I said. So they're basically available in a lot of foods. Next, you have your healthy fats, your monosaturated fatty acids, and your polyunsaturated fatty acids. Healthy fats are a source of your vitamins A, D, E, and K, your fat-soluble vitamins. So unlike saturated fat, these sources of fats don't block your arteries, and they actually have antioxidative and anti-inflammatory properties. So we know that vitamin E is actually an antioxidant, and it actually regenerates vitamin C, which is so cool and interesting. And also your fat soluble vitamins, your fats are your energy. That's where your energy comes from. So it's important to have a diet. You still need your fats, your healthy fats for your energy, and as well as the other important functions fat plays in the body, like insulation, producing hormones and all this other stuff. And then you have your water, an essential component to life. We are like 90% water, is it? 60 to 90% water, somewhere along that. So some problematic foods, we have saturated fat, which I've mentioned a number of times. Saturated fat in your red meat blocks your arteries, leading to stroke. High intakes of salt and sugar, these are very similar. So salt increases your blood pressure, and this can also lead to stroke. And keep in mind that when your blood pressure is high, you're actually inducing damage to the inside walls of your arteries, which is a big risk factor for stroke. With the salt and sugar, like they're available in so many foods. They're hidden in so many foods. Sugar has been linked to obesity, type 2 diabetes, CVD, and tooth decay. And then kind of linked with the salt and sugar, you have your high processed foods. So we already know that highly processed foods are rich in salt and sugar, low in nutrients. Some of them can be fortified with vitamins, but it's kind of like your benefits are being outweighed. Highly processed foods also have a lot of additives added to them. You have your chemicals. Anything processed is going to have some sort of ingredient in it that's going to optimize its shelf life. When a product is made in a food company, their goal is to maximize their profits and to reduce waste. So they're not going to produce something that isn't going to last on the shelf, that isn't going to last throughout, the journey from it getting to your fridge or to your table or your plate, whatever. Yeah, so shelf life is an important part of processed foods. Some common health conditions in Ireland and within the world, really. You have your osteoporosis, digestive health issues, celiac disease, neural tube defects, anemia, and inflammatory disorders. There's a lot of conditions. So if I was to name an important nutrient for each of these common conditions, your osteoporosis, I would say your vitamin D. So to keep your bones healthy, you need vitamin D, you need calcium. For a good and healthy digestive system, you need your probiotic foods, you need your vegetables, you need your pre and probiotic foods. You need fiber for good digestive health. For celiac disease then, well, that comes back to gluten, so that's kind of like a special condition, autoimmune disorder. And for neural tube defects, folic acid. Irish women don't actually take in enough folic acid. And folic acid is so strange, or folate, I should say, the natural form, because folate in foods like asparagus, green beans, that kind of thing, it's not as bioavailable in the body compared to the folic acid. So it's funny. Therefore, a supplement is absolutely necessary to increase your blood folic acid to a high enough level where it's going to prevent babies being born with NTDs. It's really funny, very strange. And then anemia, you have your iron. I recently learned that anemia is a huge problem in not only women but children as well, and it's actually a massive problem in the world, which is strange because I don't know, I just find that so strange, such an unusual condition, because you have your red meat. So many people eat red meat, like especially in Ireland, it's such a problem, or it's such a popular food. But yeah, I suppose anemia can come back. Anemia is linked to a lot of other chronic diseases like malabsorptive issues, like you have your inflammatory bowel disease. Speaking of inflammation, you have your inflammatory disorders like inflammatory bowel disease. That's also like basically where your gut rejects certain foods. Yeah. Fats. Your red meat contains your saturated fats and your cholesterol. Oily fish is a good source of omega-3 fatty acids, and omega-3 fatty acids are actually anti-inflammatory, which is really good. Olive oil is such a good fat. I should have avocados on this as well. But olive oils are rich in polyphenols and have antioxidative and anti-inflammatory properties. So olive oil actually contains vitamin E, and vitamin E is an antioxidant. Speaking of olive oil, I have to mention the Mediterranean diet. Their favorite thing is olive oil. It's like religious, like a god to them. So I think the Mediterranean diet is absolutely great. It's basically kind of like a vegetarian vegan diet, sort of in a way. It's very based on fruit, vegetables, bread, cereals, beans, seeds, nuts. Olive oil is a huge part of Mediterranean diet, like I said. So it's a plant dominant diet, much like the veganism. Veganism, when you think about it, veganism and vegans and all this, they're all or vegans and vegetarians. It's all promoting plant-based food, which is good. More fruit and vegetables. Everyone could do with eating more fruit and vegetables. There'd be a lot less chronic diseases if we were eating more fruits and veg compared to meat and dairy and sweets. So in the Mediterranean diet, they only have dairy products in moderation. For protein, they typically eat lean meats, chicken, fish, and they have eggs as well. Again, in moderation, low to moderate intakes of meat, like chicken and turkey. And actually, they only actually have meat, like red meat, very on occasion, maybe once or twice a month. And I know Irish people, we do like our meat. We like to take that multiple times a week. It's hard to resist. And then wine, you have your wine because it's actually a source of antioxidants, the red wine, that's allowed on occasion. And olive oil and nuts, that's their major fat source. They're healthy fats. So basically this diet is high in fruit and veg, low in saturated fat, good sources of lean protein, and it's also very high in antioxidants. So that is the conclusion of my presentation. I hope you all found this helpful and maybe learned a thing or two in this. I would find it so interesting if you would leave a comment and tell me anything you learned from this presentation, because I don't know, I'm just never done learning when it comes to nutrition. It's just there's so much to learn. There's so much to learn. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.